The sun hung low over the hills of Zuru, casting long shadows that stretched over the village, painting the ground in shades of gold and crimson. In the distance, the Zumba Forest loomed like a dark, untamed beast. People in the village of Zuru always spoke of the forest in whispers. They said that at night the spirits came alive, weaving between the trees, listening to the wind, searching for souls to test. Inside a small compound at the edge of the village, Chike knelt on the hard-packed dirt floor, scrubbing stubborn stains from the ground. His fingers were red and raw, his muscles aching from a day that seemed to stretch endlessly. His back bent under the weight of too many tasks that belonged to him and only him, though the house was filled with people. From the shadow of the doorway, a sharp voice pierced the air. "Chike!" Nia's voice hit him like a slap, cutting through the quiet. Chike flinched, his hand pausing mid-scrub. He didn't dare look up. He knew what was coming. "Yes, Ma," he called back, his voice careful, controlled. Nia, his stepmother, appeared in the doorway, hands planted firmly on her hips. Her dark eyes gleamed with something like triumph, as if she relished these moments. Behind her, her children, Uzo, Obina, and little Ada, watched with sneering smiles. "You've been scrubbing that same spot for hours," Nia said, stepping into the courtyard. Her feet moved with a deliberate slowness, like a predator circling prey. "Are you that lazy? Or are you just useless?" Chike bit the inside of his cheek. He didn't answer, didn't dare. Instead, he bent his head lower and scrubbed harder, as if that might erase the shame rising in his chest. Nia's voice was like the crack of dry leaves. "When you're done here, fetch water from the stream. The pot is nearly empty." "I'll go now," Chike said, rising to his feet, brushing dirt off his worn tunic. His legs felt weak beneath him, his arms sore from carrying the weight of endless chores. But that didn't matter. If he didn't move quickly, there would be more punishment waiting. As he grabbed the clay water pot, a sharp voice rang out from behind him. "Not so fast," Uzo called. He was leaning against the wall, his arms crossed over his chest, a cruel grin on his face. "You missed a spot." He pointed to the ground near his feet, where a faint smudge of dirt remained. Chike's eyes flicked to Uzo, but he swallowed his anger. He dropped to his knees again, hands gripping the rag with white knuckles. Inside the house, Chike's father, Amadi, sat by the fire, sharpening his tools with slow, deliberate strokes. The sound of metal scraping against stone filled the silence between Nia's taunts. Amadi didn't speak. He didn't look up. He just sat there, as though the world around him was too distant to touch. Chike's gaze flickered toward his father, a glimmer of hope that perhaps, this time, his father might speak up, defend him, tell Nia to stop. But Amadi's face remained blank, eyes fixed on the fire. Chike's heart sank deeper, the weight of silence pressing heavy on his chest. It was after dinner when it happened. Amadi stood suddenly, his brows furrowing. "Where's my cutlass?" he muttered to himself, patting his side. Nia's eyes lit up. "You must have left it at the farm," she said, her voice sugary sweet but with a sharp edge. She turned toward Chike. "Chike, you left your father's cutlass at the farm. How careless." Chike's heart lurched. "But No excuses," Nia cut him off, her voice like steel. "Go back to the farm and get it, now." Chike's breath hitched in his throat. The farm was at the edge of Zumba Forest. It wasn't far, but the sun had already dipped below the horizon, and the elders had warned them, never go near the forest at night. "Ma, it's too late. I'll go first thing in the morning," Chike stammered, his voice barely above a whisper. Nia's eyes narrowed. "Are you arguing with me? Do you think you have a choice?" "But the spirits?" Chike started, his fear rising. "The elders say the forest is dangerous at night. The spirits..." Nia laughed, a harsh, biting sound that echoed off the walls. "Spirits? Are you a child, Chike? Scared of fairy tales?" Chike swallowed hard, glancing once again at his father, who sat unmoving by the fire, his face hidden in shadows. Chike's chest tightened with disappointment. There would be no help from him. Nia stepped closer, her voice lowering to a hiss. "You'll either go now or you'll face worse when you come back, do you understand me?" Chike's hands shook as he reached for the lantern hanging by the door. He felt the weight of everyone's eyes on him as he stepped out into the night, the air cooler now, thick with the whispers of the wind. His heart pounded in his chest, and as he walked down the path toward the farm, the shadows of the trees seemed to reach for him, their long branches like skeletal fingers against the darkening sky. The path to the farm wound through the outskirts of Zumba Forest. The trees here were old, towering giants with trunks as wide as 3 men. They cast long, dark shadows that seemed to move on their own, shifting in the dim light of Chike's flickering lantern. Chike kept his eyes on the ground, trying to ignore the way the wind seemed to whisper through the leaves, carrying voices he couldn't understand. His mother had once told him stories about the forest spirits, how they could see into a person's heart, how they tested those who dared to walk their paths at night. Suddenly, a branch snapped in the distance. Chike stopped in his tracks, his pulse quickening. He swung the lantern around, the dim light barely penetrating the thick undergrowth. The air felt heavy, and with each step, his fear grew. The trees seemed to lean in closer, the wind's whispers turning to murmurs. "Just the cutlass," Chike muttered to himself, trying to steady his breath. "Get the cutlass and go home." When he reached the edge of the farm, he began to look for his father's cutlass. He saw something that looks like it, lying where it had been left, half buried in the soil. Chike let out a shaky sigh of relief and bent down to pick it up. But as his fingers closed around the handle, a shadow moved at the corner of his vision. Chike froze. From the darkness, a figure appeared. A tall, luminous figure draped in white, its form barely distinguishable from the mist that curled around it. The spirit seemed to float above the ground, its eyes glowing softly in the night. Chike's breath caught in his throat. He had heard the stories, but seeing a spirit in person was nothing like the tales. His legs felt like they were made of stone. "What are you looking for, child?" The spirit's voice was soft, like a breeze stirring the leaves. There was no malice in its tone, only curiosity. Chike's heart pounded in his chest. He lowered his gaze, remembering the elders' teachings. Always be respectful. "I came for my father's cutlass," he said, his voice trembling. "I left it here by mistake." The spirit tilted its head slightly, its eyes never leaving Chike's. With a wave of its hand, 4 cutlasses appeared before him, floating in the air. One was made of gold, another of silver, one of sparkling diamonds, and the last, a simple, worn iron cutlass, his father's. "Which one is yours?" the spirit asked. Chike stared at the dazzling blades, his mouth dry. The gold one gleamed in the moonlight, and for a moment, he imagined what it might feel like to hold something so valuable. But the thought passed quickly, replaced by the memory of his mother's teachings. Honesty, always. "The iron one," Chike said, pointing to his father's cutlass. "That one is mine." The spirit smiled, its eyes softening. "You are honest, child. That is a rare gift." It handed him the cutlass, but before Chike could thank it, the spirit held out something else. A flute, carved from bone, smooth and ancient. The light from the lantern reflected off its surface, casting intricate patterns of shadows on the ground. "Take this," the spirit said. "Play it, and good things will come to you." Chike hesitated, then reached out and took the flute, bowing deeply. "Thank you." The spirit smiled once more, then slowly faded into the mist, leaving Chike standing alone in the silent night. The air seemed lighter now, the shadows less menacing. Clutching the cutlass and the flute, Chike turned and began the long walk home, his mind spinning with everything he had seen. The night air felt different as Chike returned home. His steps were slower, his mind heavy with thoughts of the spirit and the gift it had given him. The flute, tucked carefully into the folds of his tunic. He could still feel the smooth surface against his chest. the weight of it comforting but strange, as though it held a secret he wasn't yet ready to understand.